He's met and influenced many world leaders, and now he's about to tell you how to unite the America he loves.
That job's filled.
Unique. Brilliant. And unpredictable. Robert Davi is a Renaissance man who writes, directs, sings, and does it all with excellence.
Yes, okay, we're all very impressed, but let's get on with it, huh?
Robert Davi believes he should use his voice to both repay and help unite America, the America that made his dreams come true.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Robert Davi Show. Hello, friends. Welcome to The Robert Davi Show. I'm Mike Garey, sitting in for Robert Davi out on assignment. Hopefully he should return shortly. Our best to him. Our best to everybody who's listening out there around the world on CRN Digital Talk Radio or on one of our many affiliates, or perhaps even watching on Facebook, facebook.com/CRN Talk, or maybe you're listening to the podcast. Podcast is available wherever you find your podcasts: Google Play, Apple Podcast Connect, iTunes, Stitcher, Springer, Spotify. Search for the Robert Davi Show podcast. And also all previous sessions are available on YouTube as well. I'm joined by Nick Davi. Nick, how are you?
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Doing very well in a blustery and cold but yet sunny Southern California.
It's weird.
In the midst of the winter wonderland. I see it is snowing up in Northern California and in Oregon, and Washington State as well. I hope Michael Medved, friend of the show, is keeping warm up there. One thing, a story that's going, I think, woefully underreported. I think it's being reported enough, but I don't think it's being discussed enough because other issues have kind of sucked out the oxygen. I want to talk about what's going on in Ukraine. Right now, we are seeing a massive buildup of Russian forces in Ukraine, as well as on the border of Ukraine. Over 160,000 troops I've seen, and also equipment that is not normally seen deployed in what Russia always calls these kind of things a quote-unquote exercise. Sure. We are seeing actually Russian forces deploy military ambulances. We're seeing supply lines being built. And the question is whether or not Vladimir Putin and the Russian military will actually complete its invasion and full-scale occupation of Ukraine. Ukraine was known as the breadbasket of the Soviet Union when the Soviet Union was still formed. So what is Putin doing? Anybody who's studied Putin, his kind of psychology and his rise to power, of course, he's a former KGB, later FSB, and is de facto dictator of Russia at this point. Of course, we saw after the Second Russian Revolution in 1989, some semblance of democracy in Russia, which has developed into a kleptocracy, and now, I would say, is a de facto fascist state. Putin and his cronies, they've worked out a power-sharing agreement where Putin will serve as prime minister for 4 years, then president for 4 years, then back to prime minister to avoid any sort of term limits. Freedom Watch, which tracks elections and tracks general corruption of states, has pretty much ruled that Putin's quote-unquote elections have all been fraudulent and fixed. Putin, of course, will eliminate dissent by any means necessary. One of the largest Russian human rights organizations was shut down by the Russian Supreme Court today for violating its state non-state actors policy. And Putin, for years, if you read some of his speeches, some of his early work, he has lamented the fact that the great Soviet Union broke. That for nearly 75 years, all the way from the Ural Mountains to the Northern Pacific, the Soviet Union controlled the largest pieces of territory in the world. And after we saw the breakup of communism, the breakup of the Soviet Union as a whole, we saw all these satellite republics declare their independence. And some of them, especially in Eastern Europe, Ukraine, for example, Poland, and others, wanted to embrace a more Western-style democracy and a Western style of capitalism. That hurts Putin. Putin wants to see Mother Russia great again. Make Mother Russia great again. He's done it in Ukraine. He's done it in other places, Belarus. And so for the past couple of years, as we've seen China as, you know, our great geopolitical threat to this country, both militarily and economically, I think that Russia has kind of slid in the back door. They've already started to test and field hypersonic missiles. And Putin's rationale on why he is so bellicose when it comes to Ukraine and other countries upon its borders, he says that NATO is infringing on its sovereignty. NATO, of course, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, an organization founded in 1948 to counter the Iron Curtain that was draped around Eastern Europe. NATO, at this point, is not an offensive organization. It's a defensive alliance. It's a mutual defense alliance. You attack one, you attack all. Also, deep into that Article 5, Article 5 is the NATO article which dictates that mutual defense agreement. Article 5, I believe, has only been invoked once since the formation of NATO, and that was shortly after 9/11. But also, there's language built into the NATO treaties where you need to have a declaration of war. Only Congress can declare war. We haven't had a declaration of war since 1941. All subsequent conflicts have been either authorized through singular packages passed through Congress, such as an authorization of military force, or unilateral decisions made by the commander-in-chief. That legality has been disputed. The commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, can unilaterally order military action. There's a debate on that. John Yoo, former chief counsel during the Bush Jr. administration, argued heavily that the Constitution grants the president wide war powers as commander-in-chief. So what is to happen if Russia and Putin really decides to send over hundreds of T-80 tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, aircraft, helicopters, and troops to occupy Ukraine? Are we going to war? I don't know. Is it worth it? I don't know. How do we deal with Putin? Putin seems to, that we've tried sanctions, we've tried diplomacy, we've tried pretty much every diplomatic trick in the book. I think there's really only one way to deal with Putin, is that to go after his money. Because Putin is corrupt, Putin is a kleptocracy, or he's the head of a kleptocracy, I should say. He's also reportedly could be one of the richest men in the world. Footage leaked out of his vacation home a couple of years ago, footage that I believe he did his best to keep internalized, probably to the dismay and probably dismemberment of some journalists, and that his vacation home was worth $1 billion itself. Panama Papers, a very underreported story. Panama Papers, all sorts of financial documents which were leaked 2.5 years ago, outlined some of Putin's wealth, how he will dictate and disseminate wealth to himself and to his closest allies. Do we bankrupt the man? How do we do that? Do we not allow Putin or any of his cronies access to the U.S. financial sector? They own a lot of real estate, folks. They own a lot of really nice luxury apartments in New York City and Manhattan. A lot of beautiful mansions out here in Beverly Hills. It's also quite interesting to see certain politicians on the right who somewhat downplay Putin's bellicose actions, Russia's bellicose actions. Why is that? Is it because the Republican Party has become more isolationist, a stance that I can probably get behind, that I think a lot of Americans will support, especially in the wake of 2 forever wars that have just come to an end? I think Americans are sick of war. They're sick of foreign deployments. They're sick of seeing their sons and daughters go overseas when there's so much work to be done here at home. No one wants to see the reignation of the Cold War, or that Cold War turning hot. A lot of people remember the drills in school. It was earthquake drills for Nick and I, But for the generation before, it was A-bomb drills. The United States and Russia have over 11,000 nuclear warheads between themselves. Enough firepower to destroy the world many times over.
It's pretty scary how much power one person has.
The most powerful people in the world, the President of the Russian Federation and the President of the United States. Some would say also the captain of a Ohio-class ballistic missile sub, but it's scary. It's scary someone who, lived through the tail end of the Cold War, that we might see this revisited. You can kind of trust China to always follow their economic interests. But with Russia and with Putin could be a madman. So how do we deal with this? I don't know. The answer's complex. But it's definitely something we should keep our eye on. The international community should keep their eye on it. Because you can't have one state invade another state, sovereign state, occupy it, and have the world do nothing. Davi, back in a minute.
I'm Al Simon, 91 years young. I created Balance 7 20 years ago. I don't believe God intended for us to be old and sick. For 10 years, I studied pH and how important it is to the immune system. No doctor or hospital can do what Balance 7 can do for you. Balance 7 is the key to unlocking a healthy immune system. In 3 days' time, you'll feel more energy, less joint discomfort, and clarity of thinking. Bring your body back to balance. Order now and receive free shipping and a free bottle of My Smooth Skin.
Get your body back in pH balance with Balance7.com. Balance 7 unlocks the immune system. Your body will respond in a wondrous way. Your energy level will go up, joint discomfort will be reduced, and heartburn no longer a problem. We have a 100% money-back guarantee. You have everything to gain. If you're sick and you don't want to be, Balance 7 is the answer. If you're healthy and want to stay healthy, Balance 7 is the answer. Go to Balance7.com. That's Balance7.com. Use the code word BALANCE and get free shipping. Balance7.com. That's Balance7.com.
What are you so happy about?
I'm on the pill.
Aren't you two a bit old to worry about having more kids?
Not her, me.
You lost me there, buddy.
Steelman pills. Things weren't always looking up, if you catch my drift. So, my doctor prescribed me a little something.
Like Viagra?
Yeah, but that's expensive, and it wasn't covered by my insurance. Steelman pills cost me less than $3 a pill, and virtually the same effect. I just called and got over 40 pills for only $99.
I have this friend who might be looking and...
Well, if your friend wants some help, the consultation is free over the phone. No clinic. Steelman Pills sends it in the mail in a confidential package.
I'm on it. I mean, my friend will be on it.
Steelman Pills, going the extra mile to help men with erectile dysfunction.
800-605-1683. 800-605-1683. 800-605-1683. That's 800-605-1683.
For the getaway of your dreams, come to Hawaii's Playground, Ka'anapali Beach Resort, on the fun side of Maui, where the world comes to play. Find your spot on Ka'anapali Beach with 3 miles of white sand, 12 resort properties, 2 golf courses, and 2 shopping centers. Enjoy the playground of Hawaii's ancient royalty. Ka'anapali Beach Resort is Hawaii's original master planned destination resort and home of the Hawaii Food and Wine Festival. With views of 2 neighboring islands, you can breathe in the land's natural beauty from your favorite resort or golf fairway. Come experience Ka'anapali's own special brand of Hawaiian hospitality with world-class dining, relaxing resorts, water sports, and activities of every kind. For romantic, family, and great friend getaways, discover the options of Ka'anapali Beach Resort, where the world comes to play. Plan your getaway today. Visit Ka'anapaliResort.com. That's KAANAPALI Resort.com.
Robert Davi.
You know, I'm the one delivering the message, not receiving it.
And we're back, Robert Davi Show. Mike Garey sitting in. Robert out on assignment. CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com. You can follow Robert on Twitter. He's on Twitter. He's also on Facebook and on Instagram. Just search for Robert Davi on all those platforms. He does some great video clips on Instagram. I recommend that. Check it out. And also, he will speak about, he'll put videos of his fantastic art, too. His art being his singing. He's a great singer. Just a tremendously talented, not only actor, director, producer, writer, radio broadcaster, but also a singer as well. Talking about Putin and Ukraine, it should be noted that Ukraine has been talking about NATO membership always since 2008, but it's kind of international community and NATO itself. The United States, too, have been kind of slow walking that because they know that would be seen as a shot across the bow to Putin. And so what do we do with our friend Vlad? So Kevin D. Williamson, he's a writer and a conservative thought provoker. He writes for the National Review. He wrote an article today, quote, "Stick it to Vlad." And he's pretty much, he says, quote, "With China having comprehensively eclipsed Russia as the baddest of the bad actor among nation states on the world stage, Vladimir Putin is begging for attention from the West. Perhaps it's time to give him some." Mr. Williamson argues that we should expand NATO, which is exactly what apparently Mr. Putin is trying to avoid. The reason he's stationing all these troops on the border and making all these bellicose statements is because he wants to dissuade certain former Soviet satellites to joining NATO. Quote, "Because we are so accustomed to outrages from Russia, we do not seem to appreciate how outrageous this is. Ukraine is a sovereign nation that can decide for itself whether a national organization is to join. NATO is an organization of sovereign states, including the United States, that can decide for itself what policies will be and to whom it will offer membership." Quote, "Russia is a third-rate gangster state whose idiotic policies have immiserated its people. In spite of its petroleum wealth, Russia's GDP capita is half of Lithuania's, Latvia's, or Slovakia's, and less than a third of Poland's. And behind that of even China, Panama, and Costa Rica." That is outrageous and unbelievable. Russia, which is, I believe, the third largest producer of oil and gas in the world, can't pay its bills. That corruption, that kleptocracy takes money out of the hands of the people and puts it in the pockets of a few. The few being Putin and his cronies. But not only do you have to watch about Russia's military might, like I said, they are one of the largest producers of oil and gas, and they supply almost all of the natural gas and heating energy to Western Europe. Russia has cards to play here, folks. Not only does it have a modern military, I mean, they have fifth-generation air-to-air fighters. They have an immense, I believe, the largest number of tanks and armored fighting vehicles in the world. Russia's military is been untested in a large land war. They are excellent at deploying what's known as the Little Green Men, which are Russian special forces, and conducting limited operations in nearby states. Can they sustain a long-term occupation or land war? Or even a significant proxy war? Russia's military history in the latter part of the 20th century includes its disastrous experience in Afghanistan. Sound familiar? And also a protracted war in Chechnya. All sorts of atrocities were committed there. Russia relies on a conscript army. Unlike the United States, which has a citizen soldier army, all volunteers, Russia still has a conscript army. Oftentimes they go unpaid. So here's a question. Here's the nightmare scenario. What if Putin is overthrown? What if Putin engages in a land war in Ukraine and elsewhere? The Russian economy craters even further, and we see the third Russian Revolution. And there's no guarantee, folks, what that third Russian Revolution will lead to. Will it lead to a more Western-style democracy in all of Russia? I doubt it. Will an even more authoritarian quasi-neo-fascist ruler regime take over? Who is even more belligerent? It's nice to talk tough, but when you're dealing with geopolitical issues like this, where literally billions of lives are at stake, I think Mr. Williamson's view is a little bit too aggressive. The Biden administration, talks a really good game about strengthening the transatlantic alliance, as opposed to the previous administration, for reasons which have not been really kind of expressed to me clearly, and I'm sure those reasons are out there. The previous administration under President Trump, he poo-pooed NATO. He scolded other NATO members for not paying their fair share. That makes sense. I can understand that when the United States funds pretty much the entire alliance itself. But NATO's there for a reason. They were there with us the day after September 11th. They declared Article 5. You attack one of us, you attack us all. NATO had boots on the ground as peacekeepers all over the world, in the former Yugoslavia, in the Central African Republic, and later on in Afghanistan itself. So maybe the Europeans are the ones to deal with this. Maybe the kind of modern conservative foreign policy movement that's far more isolationist, maybe that's the right way to go. Of course, there are moral reasons why we should stand with Ukraine. But really, are there practical reasons? Are there economic reasons? What's in the national interest? The American national interest. Quote, Mr. Williamson, the Europeans understand that they need to develop a more robust and unified foreign policy and a more credible self-defense capability. But they currently view the United States as an erratic and unreliable partner at best. Repairing and invigorating that relationship is the work of years and decades, not something that can be accomplished at a single summit or with a few conciliatory speeches. Europe is not one bloc. There are very different diverging opinions in Europe, from Germany, from Italy, from the United Kingdom, from France, Scandinavia. I say let Europe deal with this. We've done enough. We've done plenty. We spent trillions of dollars defending, rebuilding, protecting Europe for almost 150 years. It's their turn. Davi, back in a minute.
You order a glass of your favorite Cabernet, fresh asparagus, hollandaise on the side, a filet, medium rare. You unfurl your napkin with a flair, close your eyes, and prepare to listen. Ah, there it is. The sweet music you long to hear. The sizzle. The sizzle of a Ruth's Chris steak.
The most magnificent corn-fed prime beef, broiled to perfection at 1800 degrees. Some call it a sizzle. We call it an anthem.
As the waiter approaches, you think, is this one mine or that one?
Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Like Ruth always said, life's too short to eat anywhere else.
Make a reservation online at ruthschris.com or by calling 800-544-0808.
The smartest way for you to get the lowest prices on your plane tickets, domestic or international, is to call SmartFares first or last, but you've got to call us before you book your plane tickets. Fly anywhere in the world, fly anywhere in the U.S., and SmartFares can save you up to 75% on your plane tickets. We have the lowest airline ticket prices on over 500 airlines, and you've got a great 12-hour free cancellation window. Plus, with our live agent help, you can always get fast help and fast answers. So on your next trip, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, how about right now? Pick up your phone and call SmartFares, plus save up to 75% on your plane reservation. So call right now. 800-915-2644, 800-915-2644, 800-915-2644, 800-915-2644.
Have you heard about Vine to Bar chocolate? It's the winemaker's chocolate, the world's first chocolate made with well-vined Chardonnay marc from the beautiful coastal vineyards of North America. Gently pressed grapes are harvested after juicing, dried and finely milled and carefully blended into the finest dark chocolate. The Chardonnay marc contains highly beneficial grape nutrients, flavonols, and has a natural sweetness that flavors the luscious dark chocolate. Mouth-watering, flavorful, delectable dark chocolate goodness with Chardonnay sweetness and beneficial nutrients. And it's alcohol-free, too. It's Vine to Bar chocolate. Order some today at vinetobar.com. That's VINETOBAR.com. Cold shipped to your door, it's Vine to Bar. Vine to Bar chocolate. Visit us at vinetobar.com.
What are you going to do with your old car? You can try selling it, you could junk it, or you could donate it to Heritage for the Blind. Your car will be towed away for free, and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-785-9618. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats. It doesn't matter if your vehicle runs or not. It will be towed away for free, and you'll be supporting those that need help. Heritage for the Blind is a nonprofit organization that helps the visually impaired live fuller lives. Call right now to donate your car, and as a special thank you for calling, you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to many exciting locations. Call Heritage for the Blind right now, 1-800-785-9618. Donating is easy, and your vehicle is towed away for free. Plus, you'll get a free vacation voucher. Call now, 1-800-785-9618. That's 1-800-785-9618.
The Robert Davi Show.
I'm Dwayne Robinson, LAPD. I'm in charge here. Not anymore.
And we're back. Robert Davi Show. Mike Garey sitting in. CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com. Make sure to take CRN with you on the go and download our fantastic custom-built iOS and Android application for your smartphone. It's super easy. You can find it in any of your Google Play or app stores, or also, here's a really fun, handy trick. Pull out your phone, make a phone call, dial pound 250 and say CRN after the tone, and the app will be automatically downloaded to your device. There's no spam, there's no spyware, we won't track you. Unless maybe Nick's hacked our app. Who knows?
You never know.
It's light. It's not going to take a bunch of space on your phone. It won't slow down your phone. You can listen to all of our 8 digital talk networks 24 hours a day on the go. Dial pound 250, say CRN after the tone, and download the app. Politico today wrote, Politico has gotten some heat. A lot of the Politico, The Hill, and kind of the more mainstream political blogs are often accused of bias. The only bias that these blogs have is whether or not they're making money. So Politico wrote an article today by, I believe, Jack Shear, who's pretty much the head honcho over there. Bill Shear, excuse me. Apologize, Bill. Which 2024 candidates won 2021? 2021 is coming to a close. And they wanted to review which major national political figures served themselves best for perhaps future electoral wins. And of course, you had to start with former President Mr. Donald Trump. Quote, the safest bet to make regarding 2024 is that if Trump wants the Republican Party nomination, he will get the Republican Party's nomination. I think there's two questions there. Does Donald Trump want to run again? I think Donald Trump wants to win, but does he want to be president again? He seemed like he was having a good time as president.
I think he's hinted at it. Like, I saw an interview, I think, where he was like, I can't say anything about it now, but let's just say you're all going to be very happy.
Well, he's been saying that since 1996, though. I mean, he's every election cycle, he kind of pops his head in. And then, of course, in 2016, he finally committed and won, much to the shock and chagrin of some, much to the delight of others. Polls already indicate that he would decimate the primary field, typically putting at least 30 points between himself and his closest political opponent. Who will be his closest political opponent if he does decide to run again in the Republican primary of 2024? Here's some names. Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, of course, the governor of Florida. He has set himself apart with his reactions to COVID. He has banned mask mandates within the state itself. I believe that's still being adjudicated in the courts. He's also made CRT, critical race theory, a big issue. I should add parenthetically, too, that he has signed legislation, or he's enacted legislation, or is in process of trying to enact legislation, where teachers and schools and administrators can be fined and, if not fired, for teaching critical race theory. I add parenthetically that I saw statistics where 70% of Florida's public schools do not have air conditioning, and it's hot in Florida. But Ron DeSantis has shown himself to be kind of an iconoclast. He comports himself, I think, better than President Trump. He's a little bit more civil and likable. But I think maybe that COVID stuff might not play nationally. What about old Mike Pence? Former Vice President Mike Pence, former broadcaster Mike Pence.
You think he'll run?
He's quietly been laying the groundwork. He's visited Iowa several times.
Oh.
He is quietly raising money. And that's another thing, though. I think that President Trump has such an advantage. Not only can he suck up so much oxygen, even without his social media, but he can raise money like you wouldn't believe. He's not going to put his own money, his own dough in there. But he can raise a grip of cash. Polling suggests Mike Pence has maintained a modicum of support. That's enough to set him apart from most of the potential field other than Trump. He is generally running in second or third place, depending on what poll you looked at, either ahead or below Ron DeSantis. Pence is kind of going with a different kind of strategy than former President Trump, where he's talking more about the future and not the past. He's talking more about what we need to do rather than what we should have done. Pence told recently the Republican Governors Association, quote, I want to be clear, I'm going to be supporting incumbent Republican governors. This kind of goes against President Trump, who, if he sees a Republican politician out there, either a governor, a senator, or a congressperson that he doesn't like, or that senator, governor, or representative is not 100% on the Trump train, and not 100% and vociferous and vocal in their belief that the 2020 election was stolen from Mr. Trump, Trump will come after him. Members of his own party. That's kind of unprecedented. You've never really seen a former president and the current standard bearer of the Republican Party attack other sitting Republican lawmakers. Mr. Pence seems like he is a get along, go along kind of guy. That could be, I think, attractive to not necessarily the never Trump Republican wing of the party, but more of those who are on the fence. More of those suburban Republican voters who are really turned off about former President Trump's personality picadillos, his quirks, you might say, and want kind of just more of a standard further right country club style Republican. Mike Pence, I think, can enable, could be a little bit off-putting to the female suburban voters because he's very vehemently anti-abortion. And one of the demographics that really put Mr. Biden over the top in 2020 was college-educated suburban women. A demographic that President Trump narrowly won in 2016, but then got creamed in 2020. So did Mike Pence have a good year in 2021? We shall see. Other notable names here. Chris Christie is back at it again. Old big boy himself. He, I would say, is about as close as a never Trump national figure that you're going to get, even though he considers former President Trump a personal friend of his and served as his transition coordinator. But Chris Christie...
Wait, that's what he said?
Yep.
Well, why do you think?
Well, because, I mean, Chris Christie is a smart guy, and he knows he can't explicitly condemn Trump because he's going to lose Trump voters.
Mm-hmm.
But
then he's also saying that to get the other side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Chris Christie, I mean, he's very savvy.
Yeah.
Very, very savvy indeed. And, you know, he was one of the last Republicans elected governor in the Northeast. Elected governor of New Jersey, a state that votes blue pretty much in every presidential cycle. But he wrote a book, you know, and he's appearing on the morning shows. So maybe Chris Christie is the candidate that's trying to seize the mantle, go to the lane of not necessarily never Trump, but kind of never Trump. Other governors, Larry Hogan, Chris Sununu, Kristi Noem, Greg Abbott, and Asa Hutchinson. Their names are be floating around. And of course, waiting in the wings is Nikki Haley, who has been pro-Trump from the get-go and to this point as well. So we shall see. 2024 is just right around the corner, folks. Davi, back in a minute.
Do you want to fly somewhere, anywhere in the world? Smart travelers call myflightsearch.com for the best deals on flight tickets. Going to Manila, Bangkok, London, how about Singapore? Call myflightsearch.com for the lowest flight tickets available. What about a local vacation? Let's say you want to fly to Vegas, Orlando, Miami, Los Angeles, or Denver. Pick up the phone and call myflightsearch.com right now. We have exclusive deals that you can't find anywhere else. The only way you can get these low airline prices is by calling us. We have so many low prices available, we can't possibly tell them to you right here and now. If you're flying somewhere anytime in the next 6 months and you want the lowest airline ticket prices anywhere, you owe it to yourself to save a ton of money. So pick up your cell phone and call myflightsearch.com right now.
Call 800-445-3166. 800-445-3166. That's 800-445-3166. Call now. 800-445-3166.
Let's talk about your credit cards. When you first start using them, it's a slow drip. You make charges, then more charges, then bills come, and they keep coming. When you open your statements, the floodgates come pouring in. You realize you have more credit card debt than you can afford, and you're barely making the minimum payments. Wouldn't it be nice to make one affordable payment and have all your credit card bills covered? Make this free call and learn our responsible way to get your credit card bills paid and under control.
Sponsored by Consumer Education Services, a nonprofit organization.
800-876-3643. 800-876-3643. 800-876-3643. That's 800-876-3643.
CESI is not a loan company. The establishment of a debt management plan may adversely affect your credit rating. Non-payment of debt may lead creditors to increase finance and other charges to undertake collection activity, including liquidation.
If Ernest Hemingway was alive today, would he say this to you?
Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Edgar Allan Poe, all great writers. And after reading your book, I simply must add you to the list.
Wait, you don't have a book yet. So make a free call to Page Publishing. Their expert staff can help you turn your book idea into a real book, a masterpiece that could someday make the bestseller list in hard copy and digitally all across the world. Page Publishing can help you completely take your idea for a book, write it, and publish it. So if you want to join the ranks of some of the most famous authors in the world, call now for a free information kit. Turn your book idea into publishing gold. Make a free call right now to Page Publishing.
800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. That's 800-378-3212.
Robert Davi.
Another $80 million write-off.
I guess it's time to start cutting overhead.
And we are back. Mike Garey sitting in for Robert Davi. Robert Davi, certified star of the screen, stage. And speaking of the screen, Deadline Hollywood has an article today asking the question, streaming versus theatrical, can the movie experience still be saved? What is the movie theater experience now, though? Nick, have you been, you're an actor, a cinemaphile. You like to see movies in the theater, correct?
Yeah, I love it. It's like, it's supposed to be an experience. That's why movie theaters are a thing.
Why? What about how? I mean, because you got a really sick setup over at your house too. Big TV, nice 7.1 surround. What is it? The shared experience? Let me ask you this question: if you just rented out a movie theater, Nick, you've done quite well for yourself. You can afford it. You can go in there and just go into the ArcLight, plop down your black card, and say, this theater for the next 3.5 hours, mine. And if you're just in there by yourself, would that replicate the same theater experience without an audience? My question is it the theater, the size of the screen, or is it the audience being around other people, a shared experience watching that film?
I mean, yes, it's both. But at the end of the day, even if you're in that theater alone, at least in my opinion, it's going to be a much different cinematic experience for yourself when it comes to sound and what you can see. Like, it's going to be a better experience in the theater than it would be at home, even though, like, no matter how sick the setup could be, like, at the theater is where it's at.
Also, I think that when you see a movie in the theater, you're less likely to be distracted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't go on your phone.
Yeah, that's the big thing. That's the thing.
Oh my God, dude. That is my number one pet peeve is when I'm watching a movie with somebody and I just look over and they're like, just tick, 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 tick. And then they look over and they're like, wait, what just happened?
Wait, who's that? Who's that?
It's like, you know what? I don't even want to tell you because you should just be watching it.
Behind the curtain right now, the lovely and beautiful Jennifer Horn just poked her head in the door. She looks fantastic today. Star, the Warrior Princess of California, Star, AM 70 The Answer, 590 The Answer.
Happy late Christmas.
The DJV show. And just
You're sounding great out here.
No, thank you. Sorry about that rude interruption by Jennifer Horn. We appreciate it anyways. Okay, going back to the theater. I don't know, man. I like seeing movies in the theater. I think that there was something that happened in the late 90s where the theater experience became a little bit not what I remember it as a kid. And I think it really started to kind of go a little bit downhill when they started doing the actual ads on the screen. Whereas if your movie, says it was going to start at 5:15, the actual film didn't start until 5:40.
Yeah.
I think also where you had to like go in that little computerized kiosk and tell them where you wanted to sit, or it wasn't kind of just general admission.
Yeah, you used to be able to just choose wherever. But the issue with that, like, I kind of like being able to choose where to sit, because then you can just, pick, instead of showing up to a full theater and your one seat that's in the back corner behind the bars of the stairs.
Yeah. That's no fun. But what's interesting too, as the theater experience has gotten a little bit logistically harder and also way more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, with these new AMC theaters, man, like with these reclining chairs, and they have tables, and they have service, like they literally have bottle service at AMC theaters. Like they have a whole bar now. Like,
so what's like a standard ticket go for nowadays? Like $17.50, somewhere around there?
Somewhere around there. I'd say at least 15.
At least 15, and then a lot of these theaters are located in malls where you have to actually pay for parking as well. Concessions.
Oh my God, the popcorn prices keep going up. Like last time I went, I think it was $12.75 for a large popcorn.
That's outrageous.
And it's $12 for a medium, and then it's like $11.
But the thing that I think, as that theater experience has gotten more expensive, you feel a little bit more exploited at the theater. But it seems the movies that are being made are almost like designed to be better in the theater. For example, a Marvel movie needs to be seen in the theater.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's all they're making right now is Marvel movies.
That's also, I feel like it has these Marvel films, like some of them are great, I'm sorry, but Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, best Marvel movies ever, hands down, no question about it.
Bold statement.
They are. I put them over any other Marvel film that I've seen, because there's like, I mean, Iron Man films are great. I love the first Iron Man. That was a great film. It's just when it gets to a point to where you're paying these actors so much money that they only have 5 pages of dialogue in a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
And they're starring in it. It's just I don't like that.
But I don't think it's one or the other. I think the binary question is whether or not movies should be released only in theaters, or a movie should be released streaming, or a movie should be released both theatrically and on streaming services, either same day or shortly afterwards. I think it was a mistake for The Matrix Resurrections to be released on streaming and in theaters in the same day. We've talked about this before, because when you release a movie on streaming, it's going to get pirated like you wouldn't believe. Also, The Matrix, that should be seen on the big screen. However, some of these smaller, more what you might call art movies, for example, the new Joel Coen movie, Macbeth, that's fine to watch at home. The new Aaron Sorkin movie about Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, you're not expecting to see, correct me if I'm wrong, and if anybody's seen it, I don't expect to see like Desi and Lucy engaged in some awesome kung fu fight, which looks great on a big screen with a Dolby Atmos sound system. I also think it becomes a little bit pretentious when people tell you, oh, you have to see that in the theater, even though I just said that. But there are certain event movies, like the Marvel movies, for example, like the most recent, forthcoming Robert Pattinson Batman movie, that's going to look great on the big screen. And also because those movies, are very large productions, but also occupy a singular place in the culture itself, where everybody sees them, everybody talks about them. That's where that shared experience comes in, where not only are you seeing it with another audience where you can kind of vibe off the rest of the crowd, it's like seeing a live band play. The only difference is when a live band plays, it's not going to sound as good as it is in the record. But a movie in the theater, it's designed. It's cut, shot, edited, sound designed to look good in the theater. Remember in the last season of Game of Thrones, when the final battle of the living versus the Night King and the Dead's Army. I know I'm going super nerd out here, but remember how everybody complained how dark it was, how no one could see anything?
Yeah.
It's because that was actually shot, cut, edited, and designed as one would with a feature film. The color processing, the digital After Effects, the cinematography. That was meant to make it look like a movie. And so, yeah, it's not going to look super good on your TV. It's going to look dark. You're not in a completely dark theater or a dark editing bay. I guess my broader point here is that if the filmmaker decides that, like Paul Thomas Anderson, for example, Licorice Pizza, his most recent movie, he was adamant that he did not want that released on a streaming service. Ridley Scott, The Last Duel, The House of Gucci, adamant. But when they're interviewed about that, they always ask them why. And the same answer is pretty much the same, is that, well, I grew up watching movies in the theater, so everybody else should grow up watching movies in the theater. Some people can't go to theaters because of COVID. Even before, some people are not comfortable in large enclosed spaces. So I do think people should have the option, and there's an economic model for that. I would have been happily paid $24.95 for the Matrix Resolutions. You don't need to give it away for free. I mean, I understand the, HBO Max and the other streaming services, they just want to keep getting subscribers. But they're going to max out at some point. There's only so many accounts out there. They're going to need to get revenue in another place. We've already started to see this at Amazon Prime and other streaming services where they're doing ad insertion. So I think the pay-per-view model, they need to make it a little bit less expensive and a little bit easier to use. And I think that would somewhat replace that long sought after old DVD money that went away, that kept the studios afloat, that allowed the studios to make Paul Thomas Anderson's first movie, Darren Aronofsky's first movie. All these great filmmakers were able to make a $15 to $20 million movie because the studios were raking in cash off that DVD money. So now studios raking that cash off the pay-per-view money. Right now, Nick, I would pay, if I could watch Top Gun 2 right now at home, I would easily pay $99 for that.
$100?
For sure. So think about it, studios. And if you want to credit me with the idea, maybe give me a percentage, feel free. Robert Davi, out on assignment. She'll be back shortly. Remember to check out the podcast anywhere you find podcasts. The Robert Davi Show podcast. Download our cell phone app. It's a regular phone call. Pound 250. Say CRN after the tone, and the app will automatically be downloaded to your digital device. Take care. See you guys later. God bless America.